The battlefield was silent after the clash of two armies. Smoke drifted across the plain, and broken weapons lay scattered in the mud. A few cries of the wounded still echoed, but most of the soldiers were gone, carried away by their comrades or left where they fell. Among the ruins of the fight, a human warrior named Rion struggled to stay alive. His armor was cracked, his arm was bleeding, and every step he took felt heavier than the last. Rion had fought hard that day. The human army had pushed deep into alien territory, but they had underestimated the strength of the Aelorian defense. The alien warriors, tall and bright-skinned, had stood their ground with courage. By the time the sun sank, the humans had been driven back. Rion had been left behind in the chaos. He tried to crawl toward the hills, but his legs gave out. Darkness closed around his eyes. When he woke again, he was not alone. Strange figures stood over him, their armor shining silver in the moonlight. Their faces were not like human faces. Their skin shimmered with faint patterns like stars, and their eyes glowed faint blue. They were Aelorian soldiers. One of them pressed a spear to his chest, but another raised a hand to stop the strike. "This one still breathes," the soldiers said in their language. Though Rion understood only parts of it, the princess will want to see him. Before he could resist, they bound his hands and lifted him from the ground. His body was weak, but his mind was still sharp. He looked around at the alien camp as they dragged him inside. Fires burned in great bowls, casting light on the tall stone walls of their fortress. Strange banners moved in the wind, each marked with symbols that told stories of old battles and ancient kings. The soldiers brought him to a large tent in the center of the camp. Inside, the air was warm and filled with the scent of herbs. Cushions lined the floor, and at the far end stood Princess Illyra. She was unlike the others. Her skin carried a soft golden glow, and her eyes were brighter than the soldiers. Her clothing was woven with threads that shimmered like sunlight through water. When she saw the human warrior, she did not turn away with disgust or anger. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him with quiet curiosity. "This is a human?" she asked in her gentle voice. "Yes, princess," said one of the guards. "He was found on the battlefield, wounded, but alive. He should have been left to die, yet he clung to life. Some say he is dangerous." Illyra walked closer. Rion tried to stand tall, even with his hands tied, refusing to appear weak before her. She noticed the fire in his eyes, the way he did not bow even though his body was broken. "What is your name?" she asked in the human tongue, her accent soft but clear. "Rion," he answered. His voice was rough but steady. "If you mean to kill me, then do it. I will not beg." The guards shifted uneasily, but Illyra raised her hand for silence. She had expected fear, maybe pleading, but not this. The human's words carried pride. She saw no hatred in his eyes, only determination. "You speak as though your life has no value," she said. "My life is mine to give," Rion replied. "But I will not crawl for mercy." Her gaze lingered on him. Something stirred inside her, a question she could not put aside. She had been taught all her life that humans were selfish creatures, quick to fight and quick to betray. Yet this man did not act like the stories. Later that night, Rion was placed in a small holding camp within the fortress. Many alien prisoners of war were kept there, most of them weak or hungry. Rion sat by himself, trying to stay awake. His body ached, but his spirit did not break. As he sat in silence, he noticed a small alien child nearby. The boy's ribs showed through his skin, and his hands trembled as he searched the ground for scraps of food. Rion looked at the small ration of dried bread given to him earlier. His stomach twisted with hunger, but he broke the bread in half and offered it to the child. The boy hesitated, staring at him with wide glowing eyes. Slowly, he reached out and took the bread. He smiled weakly and whispered a word that Rion did not know, but the meaning was clear. It was thanks. Illyra happened to pass by at that moment, walking with her attendants. She stopped when she saw the human warrior share his food with the alien child. It was a simple act, but it shook her heart. She had never seen kindness between human and Aelorian before. Her attendant whispered, "Princess, do not be deceived. Humans give with one hand and strike with the other, But Alira shook her head. No, that was no trick. That was compassion. She returned to her tent, but the image stayed with her. The human warrior, broken and starved, still gave away what little he had to someone weaker than himself. It was not the act of a monster. The next morning, Alira ordered that Rion be brought before her again. He stood in chains, but his eyes remained unyielding. "Why did you help the child?" she asked. "Because he was hungry," Rion answered simply. "I know what it feels like to starve. I would not wish it on anyone, enemy or not." Her attendant scoffed, but Alira only nodded. She studied him closely. He was rough, scarred, and clearly from a people at war with her own. Yet, in that moment, she began to wonder if the enemy was more complex than she had been told. Rion returned to his cell, but something had shifted. He was no longer only a prisoner. He was a puzzle, a question that Alira felt she had to solve. Days passed, and each day she visited him. She asked about his world, about the seas and mountains of Earth, about the songs of his people. He did not always answer, but when he did, his words painted pictures that fascinated her. In turn, she told him of Eloria's ancient cities, of the crystal towers that shone at dawn, and the floating gardens that drifted above the rivers. Rion listened, though he rarely smiled. Still, a bridge was forming, small but real. Neither the princess nor the warrior could explain it yet, but their fates had already begun to twist together. And in the shadows of the alien camp, whispers spread. Some said the princess was wasting her time on an enemy. Others feared that her interest would bring shame to the royal house. But Alira did not care. She had seen something in Rion that no one else would admit, a spark of truth, a spark that might change everything. The fortress of Eloria stood strong against the mountain winds, but inside its walls, worries spread like fire. Princess Alira, once full of light and strength, began to weaken. At first it was only small things. She grew tired too quickly. Her hands trembled when she held the royal staff. Her voice, once clear, carried a faint strain. The healers were called, and they worked with endless effort. They burned herbs, sang ancient chants, and mixed glowing medicines from rare crystals. But nothing helped. Alira's golden glow dimmed. Her steps slowed. The alien king, her father, grew restless. "You must find a cure," he commanded. The people looked to her. "She cannot fail. She is the future of Eloria." The healers bowed, but in secret. They whispered that her life was fading. Some believed it was a curse from the gods for sparing a human warrior. Others believed it was the poison of war still lingering in the air. Alira herself said nothing. She sat quietly by the tall windows of her chambers, watching the moons rise and fall. Her thoughts often drifted back to the prisoner, Rion, his voice, his stubborn strength, the way he had shared his bread. He had shown a will to live when his body should have failed. She wondered how a man like that could exist among people called enemies. One night, her illness grew worse. Her body shook with fever. The healers panicked, running to and from her chamber. None of their remedies could calm her pain. The attendants whispered that if she did not recover by dawn, her life would end. Word of her suffering spread through the fortress. The people mourned. Some soldiers blamed the human. "It began when he came," they said. "This sickness is tied to him. End his life, and the curse will end." Rion, chained in the lower cell, overheard the whispers through the stone walls. He knew he had no power to change their minds, yet when he closed his eyes, he saw her face. He remembered her voice when she asked why he gave food to a child. He remembered how she listened to him when no one else cared. A strange feeling rose inside him, one he could not push away. The next morning, soldiers entered his cell. They dragged him to the great hall. There, on a wide bed carved from silver wood, lay Princess Alira. Her glow had almost vanished. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was shallow. Rion stared at her, and for the first time since his capture, he felt fear. Not fear for himself, but fear that she would not live to see another day. The head healer shook his head. "Her blood grows weak. It does not carry the light anymore. Nothing of ours can heal it." Rion's heart pounded. The words echoed in his mind. Blood. Weak. He thought of battles he had survived, of wounds that should have killed him but had not. He thought of the strength that still burned inside him even now, after chains and hunger. "Use mine," he said suddenly. The hall grew silent. The soldiers turned to stare at him. Even the king's voice thundered with shock. "What madness is this? Human blood cannot mix with ours. It will destroy her." Rian stepped forward, though the chains rattled on his wrists. "Your healers say she will die. If she is already lost, what harm is there in trying? Let me give what I have. If it fails, then you can strike me down." Alira's eyes opened faintly. Her gaze met his. She saw no trick, no cruelty, only truth. With the last of her strength, she whispered, "Let it be done." The healers argued, but her voice was law. They prepared the ritual, though their hands shook with doubt. They placed Rian beside her, cut his arm, and let his blood flow into a crystal vessel. From there, they guided the crimson stream into Alira's veins. Every heart in the hall waited in silence. The king clenched his fists, ready to call an end. Soldiers held their breath. The healers watched the glowing lines on her skin, afraid they would shatter Dot at first. Nothing happened. Then a faint warmth spread through her body. Her chest rose with deeper breaths. The pale color of her skin began to glow once more. The golden light returned, soft at first, then brighter, filling the chamber like dawn breaking after endless night. The healers gasped. The soldiers stepped back in awe. Even the king's stern face softened in shock. Alira sat up slowly, her hands trembling, but her eyes wide with life. She touched her chest, feeling the strength returning. Tears glimmered on her cheeks as she looked at Rian. "You saved me," she whispered. Rian felt dizzy from the loss of blood, yet he managed a faint smile. "It seems your body has a strange taste for mine," he said with a rough voice. Whispers filled the hall. Some spoke of an ancient prophecy, words long forgotten. It was said that one day, foreign lifeblood would awaken the royal line's hidden power. Few had ever believed it. Now, before their eyes, it had come true. The king rose from his throne. "This is unnatural," he said, though his voice carried more fear than anger. "What has been awakened may bring ruin." But Alira shook her head. "No, father, this is not ruin. This is hope. The gods have not cursed us. They have given us a gift." Her glow grew brighter, and the wounds of a nearby soldier, who had cut his hand during the ritual, began to close as she touched him. Gasps spread again. Alira looked at her hands in wonder. Her sickness was gone, but something greater had awoken inside her. Rian watched her carefully. He did not understand what had happened, but he knew the truth of his heart. He had given part of himself, and in return, she had found life. The hall was filled with confusion. Some wanted to praise Rian as a hero. Others demanded his death, fearing what his blood might mean. But Alira stood before them, stronger than ever, and declared, "He will not be harmed. Without him, I would not stand here today. You will honor that truth." The soldiers hesitated, then bowed to her will. The king remained silent, his thoughts hidden behind his sharp eyes. That night, as the fortress grew quiet, Alira visited Rian where he rested under guard. He was weak, pale from what he had given, but still alive. She sat beside him, placing her hand gently over his. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. "Why?" Rian looked at her, his voice low but steady. "Because you did not see me as a monster. Because you listened when no one else would. Because I could not watch you fade away." Alira felt her heart stir with something she had never known before. Gratitude, yes, but also a deeper connection, as if their lives were no longer separate. She whispered, "Then we are bound, human warrior, by blood and by fate." And in that quiet moment, beneath the watch of the twin moons, two worlds began to change. The morning light filtered through the crystal windows of the Aelorian palace, scattering colors across the marble floors. Princess Alira woke, her body stronger than it had been for weeks. She sat up slowly, marveling at the warmth and energy that flowed through her. Her sickness was gone, replaced by something new. A strange tingling sensation ran through her fingertips, and as she flexed her hands, a soft glow emerged from her palms. Alira had healed fully. But the power she now held was beyond what she had ever imagined. She tried to ignore it at first, thinking it might fade. But the light in her hands did not diminish. She focused on a small stone on the table, and to her amazement, it lifted into the air, spinning gently before settling back down. The court healers were summoned immediately. They watched in awe as Alira demonstrated her newfound ability. "This is impossible," one whispered. "No mortal blood should awaken such power in the royal line." Alira shook her head. "It was not our blood. It was his. The human warrior, Rian. His gift has changed me." The healers exchanged uneasy glances. Such a connection between human and Aelorian had never occurred in history. Some feared that it might be dangerous, even forbidden. Others believed it was a blessing from the gods. Word spread quickly throughout the palace. Servants, soldiers, and advisors whispered in astonishment. The princess, once seen as vulnerable, now radiated strength and authority. Yet with power came suspicion. Not everyone trusted the human warrior who had saved her life. Outside the palace walls, the soldiers debated his fate. "His blood awakened the princess," said one. "But he is still an enemy. Can we trust him?" A more cautious officer replied, "Perhaps he is a tool of the gods. Or perhaps a spy. Either way, the princess has chosen to honor him. We must respect her word, but keep watch." Meanwhile, Rian remained in his chamber, recovering from the blood he had given. The chains were loosened, though he was still under guard. He felt weaker than before, yet there was a quiet pride in his chest. He had given everything he could, and it had worked. He had saved the princess. Elira visited him that day, her glow filling the room. "Rian," she said, "I must learn to control this power. I do not know how it works yet, but I feel it in every breath and every heartbeat." Rian nodded, though his voice was soft. "You have always been strong. This power is only a reflection of what you are inside. But be careful. Strength without control can be dangerous." Alira practiced her abilities in secret at first. She discovered that she could heal small wounds, even restore life to plants that had wilted under the hot sun. When she touched a bird with a broken wing, it lifted into the air, flying again with renewed strength. The realization amazed her. She had the ability to give life, to protect, and perhaps even to change the course of the war. Yet, not all noticed her power with admiration. Some of the palace advisors began to argue among themselves. "This human warrior is the source of her strength," one said. "We cannot allow him to remain. His blood may be dangerous. It may carry secrets from the enemy." Another advisor countered, "You speak without understanding. He saved the princess. Without him, she would be dead. Now is the time to learn from this miracle, not punish it." Alira overheard the arguments but remained calm. "Rian is not the enemy," she declared. "He has shown more honor in one act than many have in a lifetime. I will not forsake him." Her decision caused tension in the palace. Soldiers who had fought humans their whole lives found it hard to accept. They saw Rian as a reminder of the enemy. Yet they could not deny the miracle that had saved the princess. Over the next days, Alira tested the limits of her new abilities. She focused on strengthening her own body, channeling the energy that flowed within her. Her endurance surpassed any human or Aelorian soldier. She could run for hours without fatigue, her reflexes sharpened, and her senses grew sharper. She could sense the presence of those around her, feeling their emotions and intentions. During training sessions, she helped the wounded soldiers recover more quickly than any healer could manage. Soldiers who had suffered from infections or battle injuries regained strength in days. Some even said that the princess's touch brought a calmness that could stop fear. And anger from spreading. As Alira's power grew, so did her confidence. She began to walk openly with Rian in the palace gardens, showing the people that she had chosen to honor him. The two of them shared quiet conversations about their worlds, their hopes, and their fears. For Rian, it was strange to see the princess, once fragile and weak, now radiating strength and light. He could not help but feel a sense of awe and loyalty toward her. Yet danger was not far away. Word of her abilities reached the outer lands of Eloria, where rival factions watched with suspicion. Rumors began to circulate that the princess's miraculous healing and newfound powers were unnatural, perhaps even a threat to the kingdom itself. Some called for Rion's immediate removal, fearing that his presence might destabilize the court. One afternoon, as Alira and Rion walked near the palace fountain, a group of advisors confronted them. "Princess, this human is a danger to us," one said, his voice trembling with urgency. "We do not know what his blood has awakened. It could be a trap. You risk the entire kingdom for him?" Alira looked at him steadily. "I will not abandon the one who saved me. His blood gave me life. His courage gave me hope. He is no threat to my people. I am the threat, if there is one, for I will wield this power to protect them." Her words silenced the group. They had expected fear or hesitation, but instead, they saw determination, a clarity that commanded respect. Even Rion, though exhausted, felt hope rising in his chest. That night, Alira dreamed of visions she could not explain. She saw green fields where humans and Aelorians worked side by side, cities shining with light, and mountains that reached the sky. In the dream, she was surrounded by people who trusted her completely. And at the center, Rion stood with her, strong and unafraid. When she awoke, she realized that the power inside her was not only for healing, it was for shaping the future. It was a gift that could unite two worlds. But with this knowledge came responsibility. She could not act recklessly. She could not let fear guide her. Every decision mattered for the fate of her kingdom, and perhaps the fate of all humans and Aelorians depended on her. Rion watched her closely during her moments of quiet reflection. "You carry more than power now," he said softly. "You carry hope, but do not forget yourself in it. You must be careful, for not all will accept what you have become." Alira nodded. "I will not forget. I will protect my people, and I will protect you. Together, we must learn how to use this power wisely. There is more at stake than either of us imagine." The next morning, a small incident in the palace demonstrated her growing control. A young soldier, panicked during a training exercise, accidentally ignited a fire with a careless spark. The flames spread quickly, threatening to destroy the courtyard. Alira rushed forward, placing her hands above the fire. Her glow intensified, and the flames receded, extinguished by a wave of her energy. Everyone watched in awe. The soldiers whispered among themselves, no longer questioning Rion or the miracle that had occurred. They began to see that the human warrior's gift had brought not only healing, but hope and protection to their princess. Yet even as the palace celebrated, Alira knew the war outside the walls still raged. Humans and Aelorians fought battles that neither she nor Rion could ignore. Her new power might be the key to ending the conflict, but she would need guidance, wisdom, and courage. Together, she and Rion began to plan. They would learn to master her abilities, prepare for challenges, and face the uncertain future with strength. And in their hearts, both knew that something extraordinary had begun, something that could change the course of history. Forever. The princess's miraculous recovery was not just a gift of life. It was the awakening of something greater, a force that could bridge worlds, heal wounds, and inspire hope. And at the center of it all was the human warrior, whose courage and selflessness had made miracles possible. The sun rose over the distant hills, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. From the palace walls of Eloria, Princess Alira and Rion could see the distant human armies gathering. Rumors had spread quickly through both kingdoms. The humans, angered by recent battles, had prepared a large attack. Their numbers were immense, and even with her newfound power, Alira knew the challenge would be unlike anything she had faced before. In the council room, advisors argued with raised voices. Maps of the battlefield were spread across the table, showing the positions of both human and Aelorian forces. "The humans will crush us," one general said, slamming his fist. "We cannot stand against such numbers." Alira stood at the head of the table, her golden glow filling the room. "Do not speak as if defeat is certain. We have strength they cannot understand. I will lead our forces, but we must be smart. We cannot rely on my power alone. Strategy and courage will win this battle." Another advisor, older and more cautious, shook his head. Your Highness, we cannot ignore the risk. The human warrior is your ally, yet many still distrust him. If he falls into enemy hands, your army could collapse. Rian, standing quietly beside Alira, raised his voice. I will not fall into enemy hands. My life is yours to command. But if you want to survive, we must act together, not apart. The tension in the room was thick. The council looked at Rian with suspicion, yet there was no denying his courage. His presence reminded them of the miracle that had saved Alira and awakened her powers. The human warrior who had once been a prisoner was now an ally, who might decide the fate of two worlds. That night, Alira and Rian walked in the palace gardens. The moon reflected on the fountain water, creating ripples of silver light. Both felt the weight of what lay ahead. The humans are many, Alira said quietly. If we fight, many will die. Even with my powers, I cannot protect everyone. Rian nodded. I know, but you cannot hide behind fear. You have been given a gift. You must use it to save as many as you can. I will be by your side, no matter the cost. Alira looked at him, her heart filled with gratitude. I do not want you to risk your life again. The blood you gave me has already made a miracle. You do not need to give more. Rian smiled faintly. If it comes to it, I will do what is necessary. But we will face the battle together. That is enough for now. The following morning, the human army began its advance. Soldiers lined the horizon like a sea of steel. Their banners waved in the wind, and the ground trembled beneath the marching troops. The Aelorian army prepared their defenses. Guided by generals who feared the overwhelming numbers of the enemy, Alira mounted her horse, her armor gleaming in the morning sun. Her hands glowed softly as she held the reins. Beside her, Rian rode quietly, watching the battlefield with sharp eyes. They had trained together, planning for this moment, yet nothing could fully prepare them for the reality of war. The first clash was thunderous. Arrows filled the sky, and swords met with the sound of steel on steel. Soldiers on both sides fought bravely, many falling under the onslaught. Alira's glow flared, and with a gesture of her hands, she shielded a group of Aelorian soldiers from a volley of arrows. The arrows bent in midair and fell harmlessly to the ground. Gasps spread through the ranks as they realized the power the princess wielded. Rian fought close to her, defending her from enemy soldiers who had broken through the first lines. His skill was unmatched. He moved with precision, saving soldiers and striking enemies without hesitation. Even those who had doubted him before began to see the truth of his courage. Yet the battle was far from over. The human general leading the attack was clever and ruthless. He adapted quickly, sending waves of soldiers around the shielded areas. Alira's power could protect only so many at once, and exhaustion began to weigh on her. She felt the energy drain from her arms heavy, her steps slower. Rian noticed her struggle. Alira, you cannot hold it forever. We need another way. She shook her head, determination in her eyes. If I falter, many will die. I will not let that happen. But you are right. We need a plan. Together, they guided the soldiers to higher ground, where the terrain could help them defend against the larger force. Alira's abilities continued to shield and heal, giving the Aelorian soldiers hope. Rian led counterattacks, targeting key points where the enemy threatened to break through. Despite their best efforts, a wave of enemy soldiers managed to reach the hill. Rian fought fiercely, but even his skill was tested by sheer numbers. Seeing him struggle, Alira made a decision. She touched his arm gently, and a warmth passed between them. Energy surged through him, reinforcing his strength and stamina. He felt a new surge of courage, able to fight longer, faster, and with more precision. The tide of the battle shifted. The Aelorian soldiers gained confidence, pushing back the enemy forces. Even the generals were amazed. Alira's power, combined with Rian's skill, became a force that could not be ignored. Yet the victory came with a cost. Alira's energy was nearly spent. Her glow flickered, and her breathing became heavy. She knew she could not continue for much longer without risking her own life. Rian noticed the warning signs. Your power is strong, but it cannot carry this alone, he said. If you keep going, you may collapse. We need another way. Alira shook her head. I cannot stop now. If I do, the soldiers may falter, and all we have done will be lost. Rion's eyes softened. Then I will give what is needed. You saved me once. Let me help save you now. Alira realized what he meant. Giving more of his blood would be dangerous, perhaps life-threatening. Yet she saw the resolve in his eyes. He was willing to risk everything for her and for the people of Eloria. She felt a surge of emotion, not fear, but deep gratitude and respect. Before the next wave of enemy soldiers could attack, Rion and Alira stood side by side. He allowed the healers to take a small amount of his blood, enough to restore her strength for the crucial moments of battle. As the red life blood flowed, her glow returned brighter than before, and energy filled her body. She rose, stronger, more radiant, and ready to face the enemy with renewed vigor. Alira unleashed her power across the battlefield. A radiant light spread, pushing back the humans while healing the wounded soldiers around her. Rion moved through the ranks, striking precisely, his strength enhanced by the bond between them. The enemy army faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. The generals realized that the battle was lost, not because of numbers, but because of the bond between the princess and the human warrior. As the last wave of attackers retreated, Alira collapsed into Rion's arms, exhausted but alive. The soldiers around them cheered, their faith in their leaders and their princess restored. Even the generals who had doubted Rion nodded in respect. Rion held her gently. You did it. Together, we did it. Alira looked at him, tears glimmering in her eyes. No, Rion, you did it. Without you, I would have fallen. You gave me strength when I had none. The victory was hard-earned, but it marked a turning point. The war was not yet over, but the alliance between Alira and Rion had shown both humans and Aelorians that trust, courage, and sacrifice could create miracles. In the quiet that followed, Alira made a promise. We will end this war, not with destruction, but with hope, and we will do it together, Rion, you and I, side by side. Rion nodded. Then we face the future as one. Whatever comes next, we face it together. And in that moment, beneath the sun and the smoke of battle, a new chapter began. A chapter where human courage and Aelorian power combined to shape a future that neither side had imagined. The battlefield lay quiet under the rising sun. Smoke still drifted from the earlier clashes, and broken banners marked the paths where armies had once stood. Princess Alira and Rion stood together on a hill overlooking the plains, their bodies still tingling with the energy they had drawn from the bond between them. The human armies had been pushed back temporarily, but both sides knew the war could flare again at any moment. Alira's heart weighed heavy. She had seen too much destruction, too much pain, and she wanted to end the fighting once and for all. Rion stood beside her, quiet and vigilant. We have done well, he said, but the war is not over. Your power is incredible, but even you cannot end this by force alone. Alira nodded. I know, but maybe we do not need to rely on force. Maybe this miracle we share can show them a different way. Word spread quickly through both armies that the princess and the human warrior were alive and standing together. Soldiers paused, staring at the hill as golden light flowed from Alira's hands. Rion's presence at her side was a silent reminder of courage and unity. Alira took a deep breath and stepped forward. She raised her hands, letting her glow expand across the battlefield. The light spread over both the human and Aelorian forces, filling the air with warmth and calm. Soldiers lowered their weapons instinctively, feeling the fear and anger in their hearts ease. Rion moved among the ranks, speaking to soldiers from both sides. Look at what we have done together, he said. This is not a fight we must continue. We can choose to survive, to end this war, and to protect everyone. The princess and I stand as proof that trust can bring miracles. The generals on both sides watched in silence. Some were skeptical, others fearful, but all felt the undeniable presence of something extraordinary. Alira's power pulsed gently, healing the injured and restoring strength to those who had been exhausted by battle. Even the wounded horses regained their footing, and soldiers who had lost hope found courage in their hearts once more. Slowly, the weapons on the ground were raised no more. Banners hung limply from broken poles, and the sound of battle faded into quiet murmurs. Soldiers from both sides looked at each other with wonder. Could it be that the enemy was no longer an enemy? Could the humans and Aelorians finally see what unity might achieve? Alira stepped down from the hill and walked among them. Her glow was soft now, warm, inviting. She reached out to a human soldier who had fallen and helped him to his feet. Then she turned to an Aelorian soldier whose arm had been injured and restored it with a gentle touch. The two soldiers looked at each other, recognition and respect in their eyes. Rian followed her quietly, supporting her when her energy waned even slightly. "You cannot do everything alone," he said gently. Alira smiled. "I am not alone. You are here with me." And perhaps that is why this works. Across the battlefield, soldiers slowly approached one another. Hesitation gave way to cautious greetings. Some shook hands, others simply nodded. The miracle they witnessed in Alira's hands and Rian's courage had softened hearts hardened. Buyers of war, the human general, who had led the attack, rode forward. He observed the scene carefully, seeing soldiers from both sides standing together without fear. He dismounted and approached Alira and Rian. "Princess," he said carefully, "I see what has happened here. Your power, your courage. It has brought us to a place we never thought possible. I will speak to my commanders. We will end this battle and return to our lands peacefully." Alira's glow pulsed brightly, a sign of relief and hope. "Peace is possible if we choose it. Let us begin the future with understanding, not hatred." Rian stepped forward. "This is a chance to rebuild. Both our peoples have suffered. We can work together to prevent more pain. Let this moment be the start of something better." The king of Eloria, who had observed from his throne on the hill near the palace, finally spoke. His voice carried authority and gravity. "We have seen what has occurred. The bond between this human and my daughter has done what no army could. You have saved not only her life, but the future of our kingdom. Let this be remembered. From this day forward, we choose unity over conflict." Alira's eyes glimmered with tears, not of sadness, but of hope. She turned to Rian and whispered, "We did it, together." Rian nodded, feeling the weight of their shared journey. "Yes, together. This is only the beginning, Alira. There is much to rebuild, much to heal. But we will do it side by side, over the following days." The armies withdrew to their lands under the supervision of both human and Aelorian leaders. Messengers traveled to distant cities, carrying word of the miracle that had occurred on the battlefield. Tales spread of the princess and the human warrior who had ended the war not through destruction, but through courage, compassion, and unity. In the palace, Alira and Rian worked closely together. She trained to control her powers fully, using them to heal the sick and protect the people. Rian taught her warriors the tactics and discipline of battle, while emphasizing mercy and cooperation. Soldiers from both worlds trained together, learning to respect and trust each other. A great council was formed with representatives from both kingdoms. They discussed trade, aid, and cultural exchange. The miracle of the battlefield had opened the eyes of both humans and Aelorians to the possibilities of peace. Where hatred had ruled, understanding began to grow. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Alira and Rian walked through the gardens. The air was filled with the scent of flowers and the soft sound of water from the fountains. They sat together on a bench, looking at the stars beginning to appear. "You have changed everything," Alira said softly. "Without your courage and your gift, none of this would have been possible." Rian smiled faintly. "It was never just me. It was you too. Your strength, your heart, your will to save your people, those are what made this possible. I only gave you what you needed to awaken it." Alira placed her hand over his. "We are connected now, by more than blood. By this miracle, by the future we have created together. I do not know what lies ahead, but I know we will face it side by side." Rian squeezed her hand gently. "No matter what comes, we face it together. The worlds we saved will grow stronger because of this moment, and our bond will guide them toward hope." As they looked up at the sky, both humans and Aelorians could see the first signs of unity across the lands. Trade routes reopened. Cities began to rebuild. Stories of courage, mercy, and miracles spread among children, teaching them that even the smallest act of kindness could change the world. In the days that followed, Alira continued to heal and guide her people, using her powers wisely and with care. Rian remained at her side, respected and trusted by both humans and Aelorians. Together, they created a new era, where understanding and cooperation replaced fear and war. The miracle that had begun with the gift of blood became a symbol of what could be achieved, when courage and compassion overcame hatred. And at the heart of it all were the princess and the human warrior, whose courage, trust, and sacrifice had changed the fate of two worlds forever. Under the twin moons, standing side by side, Alira and Rian smiled at the future before them. The war was over, the people were safe, and a new era had begun, a time when miracles were not just stories, but a promise of hope for everyone.